Chapter 5, The Road to Statehood. And this picture is of Daniel Boone leading some settlers through the Cumberland Gap. As you can see from the picture, it's kind of narrow, curvy. Who arrived and how? Settlers came from North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. Again, the Cumberland Gap is narrow and curvy. Could be dangerous as far as walking through. You never know when Indians may be hiding an attack. And of course, white outlaws. It was muddy, especially muddy if there was rain. And again, just those very, very deep curves. Just the Ohio River, the keelboats. Found a couple of pictures for you of what keelboats looked like. They were about 40 to 100 feet in length and 7 to 20 feet in width. The keelboats could carry goods cheaper than a wagon. However, the keelboats kind of slow, danger from the currents, danger from material in the water, and you could also be shot from the bank by Indians. And sometimes the keelboat could get hung up in a low tide. But one good thing about the keelboat, you could use the material to build shelter after arrival. And of course, the keelboat, it was all manpower. There was no steamboat at the time. With the land claims in Kentucky, of rapid growth brought about political changes. 1772, Kentucky was a part of Fincastle County, Virginia. By 1776, Fincastle was divided into Kentucky, Montgomery, and Washington counties. Montgomery and Washington counties would remain in Virginia. By 1780, due to its growth, Kentucky was divided into Fayette, Jefferson, and Lincoln counties. And in 1783, the Virginia Assembly formed the District of Kentucky. Before Kentucky attained statehood, 6 additional counties had been created. And they were Nelson, Bourbon, Madison, Mercer, Woodford, and Mason counties. And in 1776, 3 types of claims existed in Kentucky. Military claims that was based on service in the French and Indian War. Claims bought from the Transylvania Company, these were invalid. Virginia accepted that they had been purchased in good faith. And settlers who had been in Kentucky 1 year before June 1776 or raised a corn crop was granted 400 acres. The last type of claim, the squatter's claim, there was no legal basis for a squatter's claim. So in order, just continuing with the land claims in Kentucky, when the lawyers arrived, land suits would be filed. There was bad surveying done, overlapping claims, and double claims. There was 4 steps one had to take in order to claim the land. 1, you had to obtain a warrant. 2, you had to file with the county. 3, the surveyor actually had to do a survey. And of course, you had to file in Richmond. Now, sometimes on these 4 steps, although today that seems perhaps kind of easy, but have to remember just in the mid-1700s to travel to make your land claim in Richmond, Virginia, that travel time it would take a lot of time. So some people may not have always did that process to get back over the mountains through the woods to make those claims. 1779, the 1779 Land Act was passed by Virginia. 400 acres for $2.25 per 100 acres. For $9, you could get 4 acres of land. Land speculators would have family members, either their cousins or friends, to buy up the land, which was perfectly just legal to do. So could you just imagine today just purchasing 4 acres of land for a total of $9? And in 1792, 2/3 of adult white men did not own land. It was cheap and easy to get. Again, as I had mentioned a few minutes ago, just keep in mind that Boone and Kenton lost land as they did not follow all 4 steps. Kentucky's reason for separation. We became irritated because Virginia did not pay serious attention to the Indian problems. We cannot take offensive against Indians. They could cross the Ohio River and attack us, but it was illegal for us to cross the Ohio River and attack them. Another reason, just for the separation, just unfair taxes. Land tax on large land grants was just too much. No postal service. You could go weeks and months and not know what was going on in Virginia. Also, it was just too far to go to court in Richmond. There's a balance of trade was unfair. We were buying land from Virginia, but they were not buying from us. And we also thought that we should have unrestricted use of the Mississippi River. This would be a thorn in our side because we do not have steamships. The easiest way to get to market was put items on a boat and float down the Ohio River to the Mississippi River and float down Mississippi to New Orleans and sell the items. Other option, trying to go up the river, was much more difficult. In 1784, Colonel Benjamin Logan heard rumors about the Indian attacks. He would call for a meeting in Danville. It would be the first Kentucky convention. And he just felt it was about time that Kentucky become its own state. There would be a total of 10 conventions over the next several years. We do not have political parties back then, but we do have some opinionated groups. The partisans, they were people who owned no land, believed that we should separate from Virginia, redistribute the land, and join the Union. The gentry wanted to keep their land, separate from Virginia, join the Union, and they would argue amongst themselves, and eventually this group would split. The court party, comprised of lawyers, thought it was a good idea to join the Union, and they thought Kentucky should join the Union and begin manufacturing. And then out of this would just come a question, should we become independent and become an ally of Spain? James Wilkinson, he was a general during the Revolution. He could not get along with anybody. After the war, he would come to Lexington, Kentucky in 1784. He had champagne taste and a beer budget. He had a lot of financial problems. He would get involved in the statehood movement. He was a great speaker. And in 1787, he would make a trip to New Orleans. He convinced Governor Miro that Kentucky was close to separating from Virginia, and that he himself had determined which direction Kentucky would go. He could direct American immigration away from the Spanish territory. He could prevent an invasion of Westerners to open the use of the Mississippi River by force, and he could bring Kentucky into the Spanish loop. And what did he want in return? What would James Wilkinson want in return? He wanted a trade monopoly, a royal pension, and a settled rank and position if Kentucky became associated with Spain. So he, some may say, if you want to be sarcastic, perhaps he didn't ask for a lot. Others, he asked for quite a bit. Governor Miro deferred these requests to Spain. He did give Wilkinson permission to sell approximately $37,000 worth of produce in New Orleans. And Wilkinson would travel home in style. He would travel back in style in a four-wheel carriage. This became known as the Spanish Conspiracy. Received a trade monopoly. He did receive the Spanish royal pension, received rank. Again, he returned to Kentucky in style, so Wilkinson received everything that he asked for. At the 7th Convention, he urged separate and ally with Spain if the United States terms were not agreeable. So again, just that Spanish conspiracy. He was very popular in Kentucky, and Wilkinson probably could have been elected governor if he had ran. While in Spain, word got out that he was not paying his bills, and so he leaves Kentucky. So again, just remember what I had mentioned earlier, champagne taste and a beer budget. He just did not spend money wisely. The Virginia Compact, private land claims based on Virginia land laws were to remain. The residents and non-residents coming into Kentucky were to be treated fairly. Kentucky was to assume a proportionate share of Virginia's Revolutionary War debt, and we did not like that. We didn't feel like that we should be paying for another state's war debt. Part of this Virginia contract, the Ohio River, was to be free for us and all citizens of the new United States. The boundaries of Kentucky were to remain the same as the county of Kentucky. And it would call for a 9th convention to accept terms. Then the 10th convention is to come up with the Constitution. The 1792 convention, the 10th convention, takes place in Danville. The Constitution, it's based on the Pennsylvania model and the U.S. Constitution. We want it to be fair here in Kentucky. Article 9 could not free slaves without consent of the owner, and we could bring slaves into Kentucky for use, but not for resale. Article 11 provided for another convention in 1799 to alter the Constitution. It's a good separation of powers at this convention. There was a radical suggestion that women be allowed to vote, to educate the black slaves, and also women could be in politics. There would be a census, there would be a census every 4 years as the population doubled quite often. And in this convention, it was just decided that the governor would be elected by electors and not by the public. There was no lieutenant governor, so if the governor died or became ill, then the electors would just elect someone as governor. One thing that was omitted, there's nothing in the Constitution about public education. They just felt that education was for the upper class. And on June 1st, 1792, Kentucky becomes a state.